Right. So here we go. Thank you so much for being here this morning, Birgit Lao from Estonia.
Yes, it's nice to be here.
I'm really curious just about your role. Normally, you see this, you either work sort of in the Ministry of Education, a ministerial role or a policy-making role or an advisory role, but your role as an ambassador for the Ministry of Education in Estonia. How does that work exactly?
It's actually, I'm sharing my position, which is a diplomatic position, with the Ministry of Education and Research, and also with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And to make it even more complicated, the foreign diplomacy department in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs belongs to the Minister of Entrepreneurship and Innovation. So I usually say that I cover three ministers, two ministries, and try to combine education service export with diplomacy, and also with innovation and entrepreneurship. So actually the main idea is to establish a new cluster for educational services in Estonia. So this is new. And we also try to be more precise on multilateral level, that those priorities we take in big organizations or in donor organizations should actually support our education service market. So it's something that it's a lot of arrangements. Yeah.
It makes sense though when you think about the way that Estonia is leading the way, not just in education, with obviously the PISA rankings and the where Estonia tends to come out in when you look comparatively at other countries is very, very, very strong. But also with the close relation you have in the ecosystem of startups there, especially kind of digital startups, it's very, very, very integrated. So it makes sense that, although it sounds like a lot of work, but it makes sense that you're kind of flying all these different flags at the same time. I wonder, when you say the kind of the service model of education, I mean, what is it that you're trying to get out there from education in Estonia? What is it you're trying to offer other countries? Is it the message come to Estonia, or is it let Estonia help you, or let Estonia show you the way in innovation? What's the model?
Yeah, I think there are like at least three different angles. I think the first is to take some topics in the educational scene and to be an advocate for that. So we could easily say that the quality of education and innovation and digitalization is something that lots of countries are looking towards us, and also for us, what is very dear, and also to our Finnish partners, is the teacher education. And we feel that we have something to give to the world. So there's no actual service behind. It's just to be the advocate and to push like the development work towards right directions. The second part is obviously the startup sector. So this needs also our support, especially the educational solutions. We are quite unique in Estonia that we actually use our own solutions, homegrown, so to say, solutions, which have been created in a triangle with schools and research institutions. They don't pop up very quickly because we test them and we pilot them, but there clearly has to be a link with good results we bring internationally. So to find a market for them. And third one is to have more educational input into the development work we do, because this is a growing area. Estonia as such is doing better and better. So we are becoming a donor in many organizations. So we would like to have a concrete agenda, what kind of educational projects and in cooperation with either higher education institutions or private sector we are actually financing.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So you're really in the thick of it. I mean, in this kind of transformational time in which we find ourselves in education, I mean, it makes sense because people are increasingly looking to, it was often Finland for many years, and Estonia is now just coming more and more into the conversation, report after report. There's just so much more visibility around Estonia, so it's great that you're adding your voice in there because you've got so much evidence-based practice behind you. You've now got all the results behind you that you can say, well, look, it's clearly working. Let's talk about how this works. I mean, it's great that you're in there. With that in mind, and specifically in terms of the digital thing, because Estonia often comes to mind when you think about digital literacy, information literacy, digital education as well, because it's such an integrated ecosystem. I wonder, I was reading about, there's a school called Vinci Gymnasium, just north of Tallinn. With the school?
It disappeared at the end, sorry.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Vinci Gymnasium. Do you know the school?
Yeah, I need you to repeat it actually, because it's keep cutting your speakers a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah. Vinci.
Vinci. Yeah, Vinci Gymnasium. Yes.
Yeah. I was reading their, for example, as an example, their curriculum, and they start off in first year with like 21st century media in the first year as a core subject, and everybody has to understand in first year the dangers of social media as well as the benefits. It's something like a core thing, and I read as well Victoria Klimova from Tallinn University. She'd written that, that in Estonian education, people are digitally curious from kindergarten. You know, so it's something like from a foundational level, you're looking at these skills to help young learners navigate the digital world. Is that a formula that you have applied, or is it something that each individual school and institution is doing themselves?
Well, what you mentioned, I think starting from the upper secondary level, those subjects you mentioned that the upper secondary schools are offering, those are actually volunteer subjects. But lot of upper secondary schools offer them because those are convenient and there's a great interest. But when we try to link this topic with kindergartens, then we have to look into the general competences which are demanded to be present in kindergartens or lower secondary curriculum. So we have the system where kindergartens and also schools have quite a lot of autonomy. They are extremely autonomous. They have free will to establish the school or kindergarten curriculums and also subject-related curriculums. But from the state perspective, what we look after is that there should be presence of 8 general competences, and they have to be embedded into each and every subject. So it's not that you could, for example, teach the citizenship competency only in mathematics or in physical science, that you have to do it in all the subjects. And this is not actually new. We didn't start it with that in recent years. It has been the rule for almost a decade. So there's a lot of experience behind. Also, we are able to assess those competencies more and more. And also teachers are aware how to involve those competencies into their specific subjects. So there's quite a lot of tradition behind it, yes.
So just for our viewers out there that might not be familiar with what digital citizenship means in education, what does it mean to you? And is it a definition that's always evolving? Or is it something that's quite static? So,
yeah, I think it's actually interesting that we don't define the digital citizenship though we define citizenship. And then we defined as a general competence lots of subjects or topics which are related to digital world. For example, we have cultural and value related competence is one of them, then social and citizenship competence, but also learning to learn or digital competence, mathematical competence, natural science competence, and technological competence. So it's something I would say that the citizenship, digital citizenship competence is sort of like a result of mixture of different competences we have present in the curriculum. And the digital one, we are also able to assess, also the citizenship one. So we can give feedback how far they are. But in that sense, I could say that the digital is just another angle, because we teach the same values as being a just citizen.
Right. Okay. And so what are these values? Because when I think about digital citizenship, I think about the way that we communicate online, the presence we have online, but particularly sometimes this comes under information literacy in some curricula, but it's, for me, it's part of digital citizenship. The ability to critically evaluate information, you know, the ability to filter sources and question what you're reading in particular. Some people put that under different subjects, if you want to put it that way, and some people include it in digital citizenship. So when you're explaining digital citizenship to somebody, how do you actually explain it? When you say, well, this is what it is, this is the skills it involves and the things that people should be able to do or know to become effective digital citizens. How would you explain that to someone else?
I would say, like where you started, it's like the awareness of your activities and knowing what is right or wrong. But I could say that if I look at the definition, what is stated, that it's also like to be an active, helpful and responsible citizen, also online or offline, to support the democratic development of the society. And for example, to be aware and follow the common norms and values, and also to know the rules of different environments, also digital or non-digital environments, and respect the different religions and different ethnical groups. This is written down, and also the cooperation ability, how to intervene in different situations, and also to accept people with different values if they don't match with yours. So this is roughly what I can say, looking from the competencies what are written down. So I would say that they match very well with normal citizen, what we expect from the young person to grow.
So this is quite a broad definition. I see what you mean now, that there's a real, I mean, it's part of the same thing as citizenship, generally speaking. It's just in a digital form and with a digital application. And I also now see what you mean. You're talking about supporting democratic institutions, democratic participation in society, and all of these things are, you know, respect for other cultures and worldviews and religions. All of these things are very values-based. Now I see what you mean about the fact that values are endemic to this. When you say that they're embedded, so do you do any kind of, in terms of the digitally specific part, do you do work? I mean, I've been quite a fan of Finland's work on, which is quite citizen-wide work on information literacy, on identifying bias, you know, filtering sources, questioning the information that you're given online. Do you do kind of specific things targeted at that are kind of online based in terms of, I guess it would come under critical thinking and evaluative competencies, but specifically digital. Do you focus on that too?
Yes, but I think for us it's more like the content of the of the subject of information technology, which is a special subject starting, well, at least for my kid, it started at 2nd grade. And this is exactly the subject or the lesson where they focus on false media, how to behave online, what are the actually rules, what are the rules and the do's and don'ts, what a child should be aware of, especially in a situation. I could see that the curriculum or the subjects are a little bit changed because of the distance learning. Lots of questions weren't maybe necessary to answer beforehand, but now those are like the restricted sites or for example things you can find online, but also access to educational resources, which is a question for a child who's not, for example, 12 and wants to enter YouTube for educational content and also Google. So those are the topics to discuss, and those are the answers they look for. But also I think it's also related to critical thinking, which is one of the like core values, because like false information relies down on the fact that you have to have the pattern how to synthesize the things you see, and it comes down with the critical thinking or science related thinking. So yeah, I would say that the majority of those aspects are dealt with within a curriculum of information science. Yeah.
Okay, so then it really is embedded, isn't it? I mean, it comes into some areas in which it makes more sense, which you can do more of an application in there if you embed that aspect in information technology, for example. So it sounds like this kind of digital citizenship or citizenship is a core skill in Estonia. It's something that every single learner will be exposed to throughout their education. I mean, what kind of results are you seeing here in terms of, well, first of all, how would you measure this? I mean, are you looking at resilience to false information? Are you looking at understanding of online privacy, things like that? What kind of marker do you set to sort of measure the success of these programs, and what kind of results are you seeing?
I think, well, the assessment for this program is based on actually what teacher we would like to see as a feedback. But I would say that it's the case-based scenario, how to behave in different situations. So this is what is assessed. For example, if I look how my own child who's 12, what she does. They play with cases, so you learn with real experiences and with real examples. So, for example, again, like what can be said in social media, what cannot be said in social media, data privacy. It's a case-based learning what they do, but also not only in a school but also in the kindergarten, because we have to be aware that the digital world doesn't come with attending the school. It starts much earlier, and that's why we have to explain those rules and regulations for very young children. I think here we have quite the big challenges. So how do you explain the things for a 5-year-old? So
yeah, it's very challenging. But I wonder then, how do you bring in wider community groups in terms of, for example, the parents being the most obvious example, because consistency is key, isn't it? If parents are not supporting these boundaries and these healthy approaches in the home, then it's always going to be difficult to really make traction. So how are you doing this? Are you bringing parents into this discussion as well, and offering them the same kind of education or information?
Yeah, there are several, like sort of say interest groups who deal with the issue. It's either parents like union or or education technologists who, especially in times of COVID and distance learning, when we spend most of the time behind the screen and not actually communicating with children, there's lots of awareness raising. So it's and also I also participated as a parent in several courses which have been offered by the school that pinpoint those problematic areas. What are the consequences of it? And I must say that it's now like almost third year of COVID, at least a full second year of distance learning. I would say I also see that that we are much more able to disconnect children from the online learning, that we allow sort of like normal learning or paper-based learning also at home. So this variety wasn't there at the beginning, but I think it's now we have learned that the sort of like the results can be also achieved with a combination of digital and non-digital, which is good, especially with youngsters. So.
Okay, yeah, it's great to hear that there's so much attention given to this, because it's not the same in every country. A lot of countries, you see it on the curriculum mentioned, but sometimes it's almost just a workshop that's given. It's not embedded. It's not a core treatment. And I wonder about something that gets a lot of discussion and comes into education, but tends to come in again just in things like workshops, is the psychology of social media in terms of, okay, so it goes into the well-being space, body image, mental health, cyberbullying, that kind of thing. Is that dealt with specifically in the Estonian education system as well, or is it?
Yeah. Well, the well-being, fortunately, was strongly present before this online topic came dominant. But it was really easily and quite smoothly transformed into digital content, that I could see that both topics, bullying and also like this, we differ in Estonia. So one is sort of like online bullying, but then you have those kind of behavioral aspects that you can force upon. And we have special subjects or special material which teachers can use at school. And then we have at least 3 dominant programs centrally financed in Estonia, which focus on bullying, either online or physical or mental. So schools can choose which program they cooperate with. They're all supported by the state also, and it has been like the growing interest also from kindergarten till the end of upper secondary. So it's a really efficient way. But also, I would say that raising the awareness for the need for psychological support has given us the opportunity that every single school and kindergarten have to have a psychologist working on spot. So it's not enough that we teach teachers. Usually teachers themselves need help on how to do that. And this system has been in place more than 10 years. So this is something, again, which we have a tradition. So we have 4 types of support present: psychologists, speech therapists, social pedagogy, and special pedagogy. So all the mental health questions, well-being questions, whether they were like online question, like appearing online during the online learning or on the classroom-based learning, we had the system actually to deal with that. So, and this also helped that the distance learning went quite smoothly here.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. I mean, so it's not, you're not just kind of expecting the teachers to create a culture of well-being through their own training. That's also part of it, of course. But you're also providing the core specialists rather than expecting teachers to be all people, which is just not possible, is it? And I think have access to these professionals as well for their own issues, their own mental health and well-being?
Yeah, well, I think it's when we made the decision that we have the education system where the students with special education needs are included in a everyday schooling system, and we don't have schools for students with special needs anymore, that we immediately realized that the burden for teachers to have different types of children in a classroom is too much. So either we have 2 class teachers, or we provide support with specialists on spot. And then we have a system when there are extra cases, we have a national system which comes to help the specialists. So I think it was a wise decision, because teacher resources are limited, and to put the emphasis on support staff was strategically wiser, because then the teachers could grow with the support on spot. And we see the results. Yes, of course there are still like challenges and obstacles and problems. We wouldn't see the end of it, but at least the majority of them can be solved at school level. So
yeah, it sounds like a culture of empowerment, really, that rather than like you say, if you put 2 teachers in one classroom, there wouldn't necessarily have been growth. Sorry, I've lost the camera, haven't we?
yeah.
My goodness.
Well, the technology has its own like ways.
There we go. So it sounds like a culture of empowerment that you know, you're actually providing a tool for teachers to grow, as you said. So each time they come to a professional with a question, they're less likely to go back for the same thing, aren't they? And then there's more of a culture of sharing. So I mean, that really is incredible to hear. And I've read that retention is quite high in Estonia schools. You know, in other countries, you've got quite a lot of turnover. You have people currently leaving the profession in quite high rates. But it seems like Estonia is not suffering the same thing quite as much. Has that been your experience as well, that teachers, there is a culture of empowerment, there is a culture of growth in Estonia, and the teachers are more supported?
I think the teacher burnout rate, especially in times of distance learning, is something which is problematic, not only in Estonia, but globally. And of course, we have to see that the amount of time they spend on teaching and preparing for teaching. So we even agreed that teachers should work 35 hours per week already 5 years ago, but the reality is that they still do at least 50 hours per week. So we can officially say that we have reduced the working hours, but they still prepare for the lessons. Yeah, I think to be smart in solving the problem of teachers' need is something that it's written into our demographic situation. Which means that even if we say that we will have, let's say, 500 positions for teachers open, despite of the age, let's say we look for also for career changers or middle-aged people who would like to come back to the school, we won't have them, because the demographic situation is like it is. So we lack people, thus we have to have smart solutions. And maybe majority of people don't know, but the average teacher in Estonia is a 50 years old woman. And all the results are actually bought by the 50 years old woman. Then it means that the age doesn't really matter. Of course, we are aware it's a high, but despite of the age, people can still learn modern skills and execute modern teaching methods. So age is not the matter. The question is where do we get them? Where do we get more teachers on a labor market? So that's why we have different types of solutions, which might not be relevant to many countries, but we allow teachers to start without a degree and to obtain the degree on spot. We allow one subject teachers from enterprises, for example, or if you would like to do a part-time teaching. And then we have lots of onboarding programs, people like me. So when you turn at a certain age and you feel that you would like to give back, to go back to teach. So yes, so there are different options. Yeah.
Super impressed. It's something that I taught for a few years in Sweden without, and I went in through the Friskolan system where I had a degree in it, but not in the exact subject I was teaching, and I didn't have a Swedish teaching qualification, but the system allowed for you to come in if the institution believed that you were a good fit, and they had the power to do that. And I thought that was such an incredible thing that we're not putting up barriers to people. And I love when I think about Estonia and you think about the digital ecosystem and the innovative culture that it's famous for now. And then you find out that the teachers are almost, I think 50% of them are over 50, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And you think, well, that's great because it challenges perceptions as well, which is another great thing about Estonia. What are the things that you think make Estonia really different in terms of its approach to education? I think a lot of people will be surprised to hear that you can go in and teach without a degree, and it's going to get people thinking, well, why not? So what other things do you have in the education system in Estonia that you think are different, innovative, or things that you're quite proud of?
I would say the autonomy, in a sense that, we have quite a small share of private schools in Estonia. Majority of them are public, owned by the local municipality or the state. But despite of the fact that the results are quite equal and equitable, that schools have extreme autonomy, and with that, this autonomy, when they have the right to actually say what is the curriculum and what is taught, we have quite high results, and very small amount of low performers is quite unique. Because usually what happens when you give freedom, you will have very different results. So you will have those who are completely selective, very high performers, and then you have quite a big share of those who fall behind, but we don't have them. So this is quite unique. And also the fact, which is also I think it's stated in BISA, that the social economical background of the parents doesn't really have any effect. So I think it's a very important, because everyone actually can have the same quality of education and have the same start to make choices what to do next. So whether you would be from the remote areas on the countryside or in a capital area. So I think this is really important, despite of the challenges we have, lack of teachers and teachers being old. We still manage to have the same equal results, which is amazing. Yeah.
And you must be getting feedback from industry in Estonia about the skills that your learners are coming out equipped with, because you find in more traditional systems that are not learner directed or learner centered, are still very strict curriculums and imposed top down thinking, that the critical thinking, evaluative judgment, cross-cultural competences, all these 21st century skills, if you want to call them that, for want of a better expression, they're often lacking in those systems. Just left behind, and almost, if they are developed, it's almost incidental. In Estonia, because they're part of your core competences that you focus on, what kind of feedback are you getting now from industry as these learners begin to go into employment? What are you hearing back from industry?
Yeah, that's actually a quite interesting, maybe even a contradiction what we could see globally, that yes, a lot of employers, societies are advocating for the 21st century skills, which don't really differ from the basic skills you should teach from the very beginning to school. Exactly. So what we hear actually from our employers, is that they want more specific skills. They want more skills which are related to STEM education. And maybe one of the interesting facts also is that forever, from the times we got independent, the share of youngsters who went for the vocational education after graduating the lower secondary has remained the same forever. So it's in between 26-29%, never exceeding 30. So a lot of more than 70% of our youngsters will get the upper secondary education. And of course, there's more demand on specific IT, technology, natural science related skills. But upper secondary is more for a general approach. So there's a high demand for vet, but despite of the fact youngsters prefer upper secondary, which maybe nowadays within like a couple of years we have made upper secondary more vet-like, in the sense that there's lots of freedom to choose your own subjects of interest, whether it be like media or defense, for example, or ICT or languages or humanitarian subjects. So yes, I think we change our system according to the needs or demands from the employer side. Nevertheless, no employer has ability to predict more than 3-4 years ahead. So thus it has to be balanced with more broader view on where we want to go. Yeah.
Right. So you're taking the point of view of this volatile, uncertain world ahead of us, and saying, well, that is the world. We can't predict the jobs. So it's probably quite dangerous to really box people in too much, and let's just focus on the skills that will help people adapt and flourish in any situation.
Yes, I think it's always a debate with a balance. So whether you should trust the will of the student, and of course parents behind it, or you just force them through the system and make them choose between academic or more like vocation related choices in very early ages, like at least I don't know, in German speaking countries it's very early. At the 6th grade you already have to make decisions, and if you don't, then the tests will make a decision for you, which well, I won't criticize it, but this is not the way we have gone. So we have gone more towards stronger upper secondary general education.
It makes sense to me, given that when this part of your mind is developing, this part of your brain is developing, and you've had the time to experiment a little bit. I noticed in looking through the websites of different schools in Estonia, mentoring is such a common theme. So there's often support for learners to reflectively arrive at where their passions lie, rather than just kind of going through the system and pursuing what the grades, if you get a subject and, okay, I've got good grades, so I'll continue to study that. It's obviously not a strong motivator, but I've seen mentoring is quite a strong theme in Estonian schools, isn't it, where there's a bit more of an individual attention to what the learner really wants, helping them discover it. Is that something that, I guess it could be individual schools making those decisions, but was that decision made at a kind of nationwide level that mentoring must belong?
Yeah, I think it has been actually like a policy target for some time now, that, for example, we see that in the future if we, for example, train only based on vocation or skills, specific skills, then the youngsters will lack those 21st century skills, because there's like no time or no slot in a curriculum to do that, and vice versa. So if you only focus on academic competences, then the employers will say that they actually lack the skills to work, you know, like, and that's why I think I had never seen how close the academic and vocational world can come. So what we have at the moment is a lot of freedom and lots of possibilities to do both, and to do both on a very good level. And I would say that this is something that it's expected from the future employee, that you have in certain areas very good skills, but nevertheless you are a good either digital citizen or a real citizen with very good quality 21st century skills. So you can manage and you can do both.
Right. Yeah, I understand what you're saying about finding the balance, about the limitation of time, and it seems to be that one of the best ways around that is always to make sure that the learner is directing as much as possible, that you're covering things that are common to their passions as well, and not trying to cover everything.
Yeah, but also you build tools to understand what is actually sort of say best part of the learner, because our system is built upon feedback, extensive feedback, and also assessment, which is a part of feedback. We don't exam, we just say are you on track or not, and what are your strengths. So earlier you are aware of it, then more focus you can put either with the factors that you're falling behind, or you strengthen your skills and competences in the field where you have an advantage. So I think this information, I didn't have it when I went to school. If I look now with my children, of course it's worrying to see that in some fields she's not doing that well, but it's my choice then to say that should we emphasize it or leave it behind, because it doesn't really play a significant role in the future. So I think, yes, to understand and to accept that nowadays from data, from digital solutions, we have so much more information which can be vital for the future decisions. Then I think that's why we can have youngsters who know what they want to do and what are the strengths. Yeah,
Because what an amazing advantage in life, actually, if you know yourself. And this is a shift I think we're seeing in systems like Finland, Estonia, that when you have conversations with learners who have gone to approaches to education like that, it's not like talking to a 16-year-old when I was 16. You have a very different conversation. They're more self-assured. They're more aware of who they are and what they want, and what an advantage of life that is. It's absolutely incredible. My final question is that, I know you're obviously got lots of stuff to do today. Just about your bold vision for Estonia. You know, when you think about the vision of where you want to get to, big picture. How would you explain that to people?
I'm not sure if I got the question because there was a little bit interruption, but you asked about the big picture, where we want to go in Estonia.
Yeah, the vision, yes.
It's actually quite individual. So we are advocating for the personalized education, which means that, and also the needs comes from the demographic situation. There's 1.3 million citizens, or like people who live here. So we want to make sure with the education system that everyone have its own ability to develop according to its needs and values. So the system of education, despite of the obstacles or challenges that it will bring to the teachers, has to go more personalized. So I would say that within 10 years, it's dominant can be a personalized curriculum than a class-based or subject-based curriculum. And I think in 10 years here, it's quite okay if you finish your studies with 5 or with 10 or with 15 years. So it all depends on your own abilities and expectations. I'm not sure if it sums up as a success story, but I think we are quite restricted in a sense of choices. So this is what we actually have to do.
Yeah. Personal learning or personalized learning things sounds like an incredible ambition, and of course technology can evolve to help support that as well, which is still, you know, changing all the time. So is there anywhere that people can go to find out more about the where the innovations are happening in Estonia in education system? You know, where the good examples are. Is there any a site or a project or anything that people could look at?
Yes, we have collected information about different stories or videos, or also the services which are present in our schools or in our education system to educationestonia.org. So, and there are lots of links how to connect different schools or service providers. So this is our nest. And this information is in English, so we don't expect you to understand our elf language. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually said that it's a joke, but it has said that the secret success story of Estonian education system is that if you master speaking and writing in Estonian language by the age of 7, which our language has 14 cases, and everything else is easy.
Yeah. That's a real confidence boost. Yeah.
Exactly. So.
Birgit, thank you so much for your time. I'll make sure to share that link with our audience as well.
Thank you.
Amazing just finding out a bit more about it. I have a very special place in my heart for Estonia, just having visited a couple of times, but more and more, the more I hear about it, the more I want to know. So I'll make sure and share that with our viewers.
Yeah, welcome to visit us, or we also have the ability now to go abroad. So we will be in London in March for the BET and some events we are still already allowed to attend. So yeah, let's meet up.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to.
Yeah.
Okay, Birgit. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, bye.
Okay, take care now. Thank you.
Bye.